In pursuit of vision. What to do, how to do it, and when to do it when God drops a vision into your heart. Written by Oluwasemilore Olasemeji. Published by Books Global. Other books written by Oluwasemilore Olasemeji. Unmasking You, questions to help you confront your real self. 21 Things I Know About Quality People. 21 Essential Lessons for Young People, practical insights on how to navigate and thrive in the next 5 decades of your life. Tavuna, A Journey into the City of Intelligence. To get your copy, please visit www.selar.com/m/hpbooksglobal. God bless you. Introduction. Deep down, I think most of us want to live a life that people respect, maybe even admire a little. We all kind of daydream, right? We imagine what our future is going to look like. Some of us picture a cozy life, just happy with family. Others dream of doing something huge, making a real difference. We all have these goals, these pictures in our heads. But how do we actually get there, especially when we're talking about doing something for the kingdom? Honestly, I think the process is pretty much the same for everyone. The only real difference is how much sweat we're willing to put in. I've noticed, whether it's a tiny nudge or a massive vision, everyone goes through the same basic steps to chase those God-given dreams. Understanding those steps is the key to turning those pictures in our minds into reality. Ugh, has your best laid plan ever just crashed and burned? You know, you had this whole thing mapped out, clear as day, and then bam. Life throws a curveball, and everything goes sideways. We've all been there, right? Whether it's a business idea that fizzled, a dream trip that never happened, feeling like you're stuck in a rut, or even something as big as wanting to get married, life just loves to keep us on our toes. But here's the thing, life's a teacher, a tough one sometimes, but a teacher nonetheless. We've got to pay attention to those lessons, dust ourselves off, and keep moving forward. And listen, you're not a mistake. Not even close. Don't beat yourself up when things don't go your way. Seriously, where you came from, how you've got here, none of that defines you. God has a plan for you, and you're here for a reason. You've got something unique to bring to the table. So, don't condemn yourself. Instead, take those messy experiences, learn from them, and use them to become a stronger, better version of yourself. Alright, so in this book, I'm going to break down some super simple, real-world steps to help you do that thing God has put in your heart. These aren't just theories, either. They're the same things that helped me get things done, including writing this book. Look, if people in the past could make their crazy dreams a reality by following some basic principles, then you totally can too. Think for a minute about those dreams, those visions you've been carrying around, maybe tucked away in a corner of your mind. Maybe God showed them to you during prayer, or at some conference that hit you hard. Grab a pen and paper, jot them down. Seriously, let's get them out in the open. Now, we're going to dig into the principles that can turn those visions into something real. Got your visions written down? Awesome. Let's start this journey together, page by page, and unlock the potential already inside you. Chapter 1. The Place of Secrets. Ever felt like you're spilling your heart out, sharing these amazing dreams and visions, and you just get blank stares? Or worse, negativity? Yeah, that's rough. And honestly, sometimes, it's better to just keep those God-given plans under wraps. Think about it, like those 3 wise men and King Herod. If they hadn't blabbed about Jesus' birth, think of the trouble that could have been avoided. That tells us something, right? Sometimes, silence is golden when it comes to God's plans. Remember, He gave you the vision, not everyone else. If you share it with the wrong people, and they don't get it, or worse, they hate it, you're just asking for problems, maybe even danger. So, be smart about who you confide in. Guard those dreams. Keep God's plans close to your chest until the timing is right. Take a moment to contemplate the joy and fulfillment that achieving your vision will bring. Can you see how important it is? This is a plain reminder that the idea that has taken root in your mind, which you believe was inspired by God, is a treasure more valuable than gold, silver, or diamonds. Just as precious metals and gems are safeguarded with stringent security measures, you must protect your vision with diligence and vigilance. This is a critical early stage where alertness and focus are crucial. Don't let your guard down, allowing obstacles to impede your progress. Remember, this vision is yours, and God entrusted it to you with the promise of guidance and support. Until further direction is received, it's wise to keep your vision confidential, ensuring that it remains a secret between you and God until it's fully realized. Okay, let me add something important here. If I just told you to keep things secret out of fear, I'd be causing you damage. There's more to it than that. I've noticed something crucial: when God gives you a vision, getting impatient and rushing things can mess up your connection with Him, the very source of that vision. Think about it. The one who gave you the picture knows every single detail. So, running around asking other people for their opinions and trying to get clarity from them is a recipe for disaster. As a Christian, I've seen this play out in the Bible over and over. Big projects, small projects, you name it. They all came to pass through patient people, who kept things quiet, and who waited for God's specific instructions. Noah, building the ark to save a whole generation. The Ark of the Covenant. King David. Even with his mistakes, David's successes were largely because he made it a habit to seek God's okay before doing anything. He was known as a man after God's heart, right? That came from his commitment to spending time in God's presence, listening, and getting that divine approval. God's always there, ready to guide us, answer our questions, no matter how many times we ask. But we get so hyped up, so eager to jump in, that we often skip the seeking clarity part. A vision pops into our heads, and we're off to the races, without pausing to make sure it's the right direction. If we just slow down, wait, and ask for confirmation, we could save ourselves a whole lot of heartache and regret. And here's the kicker: not every bright idea or vision is from God. Sometimes, it's just us trying to please people, or even worse, it could be the enemy trying to trick us into doing something that serves their agenda. We've got this fire, this passion to chase our goals, and that's great. But we need to be sure that fire is fueled by God's plan, not something else. So, how long do you keep praying and keeping things under wraps? That's a personal question, and the answer is going to be different for everyone. But here's the bottom line: you've got to spend serious time praying, meditating, and connecting with God about that vision He gave you. Think of it like teaching a kid to walk. They start crawling, right? And it takes patience, training, and practice before they take those first wobbly steps. And even then, you don't just leave them to it. You keep guiding them, supporting them, until they're confident and can handle things. It's the same with a vision. As you pray and meditate, you're waiting for that inner nudge, that sense of okay, now's the time to share it. When you get that confirmation, you're not just speaking your thoughts, you're speaking what God's telling you to say. And when that happens, nothing can stop that vision from coming to life. Okay, let's be super clear about this keeping your vision secret thing. I'm not saying you should lock it in a vault and never tell a soul. That's not how God works. He often uses people to make His plans happen. Ignoring the role of others can block your vision from becoming real. What I am saying is, keep the core of your vision confidential, but share it with the right people. You know, those like-minded folks who get it, who can help you nurture it and bring it to life. Just like someone with bad intentions looks for others with the same mindset, you need to find people who share your values and your vision. Think about it, even God uses collaboration. Remember in Genesis, let us make man in our own image. He works with others. He's already lined up people who can help you bring your vision to life. By sharing with them, you can work together, move forward, and still keep the sensitive parts private. It's on you to find those people who vibe with your vision and values. These are the folks who'll roll up their sleeves, collaborate, and support you in pushing your ideology forward. For me, that's about building God's kingdom. A good way to spot these people is to pay attention to how they react to other people's dreams and goals. If they're always putting others down, criticizing their aspirations, then you know to keep your vision locked up tight around them. People who get all insecure and threatened by someone else's success are going to do the same to you. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He shared his visions with his brothers and parents, and what happened? His brothers mocked him, they hated him. His brothers turned against him, and he went through hell. Looking back, a lot of that pain could have been avoided if he just kept his mouth shut around the wrong people. Now, even though Joseph faced all that, God still made sure his vision came true, because it was part of his bigger plan. But that story teaches us a powerful lesson: be smart about who you share your dreams with. Choose wisely. Those visions that set our hearts on fire? They're fragile. Delicate. They can vanish in a heartbeat if we're not careful about who we surround ourselves with and what opinions we let sink in. You know, you've probably run into those people who just shoot down your ideas, tell you that you can't do it, or try to talk you out of what God's shown you. That stuff hurts, especially when you've been vulnerable and shared your heart with the wrong crowd. The problem, more often than not, is we're planting those precious seeds in the wrong soil. We think it's good ground, but it turns out to be full of thorns. And those negative reactions, they can be crushing. It feels like the vision just dies in their minds. But here's the thing you need to remember: God gave you that vision, not them. They can be careless with it, but you can't. You have to guard it fiercely. Your purpose, your fulfillment, it all depends on it. Alright, before you start sizing up everyone around you, you've got to take a good, hard look in the mirror. You need to make sure your head's in the right place, that your mindset is lined up with that vision God gave you. It's easy for other people to point out your flaws or weaknesses, and sometimes, they just don't know how to say it nicely. They can unintentionally discourage you. So, you need to do some serious soul searching. Are your thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions helping you move forward, or are they holding you back? Be honest with yourself. Once you've got your mindset in check, then you can start looking for those like-minded people, the ones who share your vision and values, and work with them. And hey, if you find areas where you need to grow, don't beat yourself up. Just focus on making those changes intentionally, so your mindset supports the vision and ultimately, helps advance God's kingdom. Chapter 2. The Place of Rituals. Hello visionary. Ever heard of rituals? Now, for some people, the word might bring up images of, those spiritual ceremonies, where folks do certain things to get their God's attention. You see it in movies, hear about it in the news, even in real life. And yeah, you can't deny that those kinds of rituals can be powerful. You don't want to underestimate anyone who's deep into that. But rituals aren't just about that stuff. At its core, a ritual is a consistent, repetitive action to get something you want. It's doing something repeatedly until you see results, and then keeping at it to keep those results going, to build on them. Over time, these rituals become part of your everyday life, essential for turning those visions in your heart into reality. So, have you ever heard that thing about how you need like thousands of hours of practice to get good at anything? Well, it's kind of the same deal with turning a vision into something real. You've got to have these rituals, right? Just stuff you do over and over. I see them in two flavors: you've got your physical rituals, the actual doing stuff, and then you've got your spiritual rituals. And look, Yeah, the physical stuff matters, but we all know there's more to life than just what we can touch. So, to make certain things happen, you've got to be consistent with those spiritual rituals too. If you mix those two together, physical and spiritual rituals into your everyday grind, you're going to be way better set up to make that vision of yours happen. If you want to be awesome at anything, you have to be consistent. Want to be a great driver? Writer? Fashion designer? Doesn't matter, it's all about repetition and sticking with it. That same thing goes for making your vision real. No vision just magically poofs into existence. You must put in the work consistently. You must make those rituals, those repeated actions, a regular part of your life. And it's not just about doing anything. You must put yourself in a spot where you know what to do, what actions to take consistently, so you keep growing and moving forward. Commit to those rituals, and you'll have the power to turn your vision into something real you can touch. Now, let's be real, this world's got a spiritual side. And, if you're like me, following the kingdom stuff, you know our battles aren't just physical. They're spiritual too, against all those powers and wicked stuff up in the heavenly places. So, we can't ignore the spiritual side of things when we're chasing our visions. Prayer. That's huge. The Bible tells us to bring our requests to God with prayer and thanksgiving. So, the Bible gives us more insight into this whole spiritual practice thing. It straight up tells us, ask, and you'll get. Seek, and you'll find. Knock, and the door will open. That's a pretty solid promise, right? And you know that story about the persistent widow Jesus talked about in the New Testament? That's a perfect example of what ritual, consistency, can do. Even though the judge was a total jerk at first, she just kept at it, kept asking, kept petitioning. And eventually, she got what she wanted. That's the power of sticking with it, especially with spiritual stuff. If you want to make your vision a reality, you must tap into the power of consistent spiritual practices, like prayer. It'll help you deal with all those spiritual battles that come with chasing a dream. And don't sleep on just 30 minutes a day, hanging out with God. Seriously, that time makes a huge difference. Like I said before, you have to get the details on that vision, wait for the right time. But sometimes, you have to step out in faith, keep asking God for guidance, and keep working towards making it happen. So, how do you get those details, that guidance? It's all about spending time with God, consistently. I'm talking about making those spiritual practices a priority, prayer, fasting, and digging into the Bible. And yeah, you also need to fight those temptations, do the other spiritual stuff that helps you grow. Do that, and you'll be set up to make your vision happen and give God all the glory. Like I wrote in my book, 21 Things I Know About Quality People, trying to get ahead by making shady deals with, bad stuff. That's a dead end. But when you do the right thing, when you put your relationship with God first, that's where true success comes from. Now, let's be real, staying consistent? It's tough. You might get pushback from people in charge, at work, in your community. But you have to break free from those limits, stay focused on your goals. Since you're unique, you're probably going to face some roadblocks, stuff designed to slow you down. Think about Daniel in the Bible. He was all about spending time with God consistently, and that made some people nervous. They saw him as a threat, so they got him arrested and threw him in the lion's den. But because he was real about his spiritual rituals, he came out alive, and his vision played out. That story shows us how important spiritual practices are. Life's got a spiritual side, and if we ignore it, we're just making it harder to get where we're going. But it's not just about the spiritual stuff. The physical side of your life matters too. Your daily habits, your routines, they affect how your brain works, how you feel overall. You know how you make sure to shower, brush your teeth, eat, and sleep. You have to figure out what physical actions support your vision and do them consistently. That might mean setting aside time for certain tasks, building new habits, or sticking to certain disciplines. It's on you to figure out what those physical actions are and make them a regular part of your life. That's how you make progress towards your dreams. Back in high school, I found out I loved to write. And trust me, it wasn't exactly a writer's paradise. We had teachers who were missing in action half the time, and we were drowning in notes. But instead of complaining, I just started writing. It was my escape, my way of dealing with stuff. And it helped me get better at writing. I fell in love with it. So, after I finished high school, I wrote a book called Anxiety. It was inspired by Pastor Stephen Furtick's messages, which I'd been listening to for like 6 months straight. Now, that book never got published, and the manuscript? Gone. Poof. But, still, it was a big deal for me. It was a real milestone in my writing journey. So, fast forward 2 years, and my life takes this crazy turn. I started hanging out at my mentor's place, and I'd spend hours just buried in books. That's where I found this book, Why Nations Fail, and it just blew my mind. I can't even remember all the details of what happened right after, but I remember making this promise to myself. It was 9 a.m., I was standing outside my house, and I promised myself I wasn't going to let this vision I had fade away. I decided right then and there, I was going to write books that would help build God's kingdom. So, I walked back inside, grabbed my pen and paper, and just wrote nonstop until it got dark. It wasn't easy, but I quickly learned that if I wanted to get anywhere, I had to be consistent. But my first few tries weren't exactly home runs. I remember my first book, The Prosperous Inventor. I put 10,000 naira into it, and I sold one copy for 2,000 naira. Yeah, one. That first book was a flop financially, but I didn't let it stop me. I just kept writing, kept trying to get better. And 5 years later, by God's grace, that consistency paid off. I've been able to touch lives in ways I never thought possible. I get these amazing messages from readers, telling me how my books have blessed them. And you are reading this right now? It's proof that I'm still at it, still committed to being consistent. More books are coming, and I believe they'll keep inspiring and lifting people. Here's the thing I've learned: when God calls you to do something, you must be willing to put in the work. You must keep pushing, even when you start seeing results. Because that vision? It becomes a lifestyle, a sign of true greatness. To make your vision real, you need to ask God for direction. You need to ask Him, what spiritual practices do I need? What physical actions do I need to take? And when He tells you, you've got to commit to doing them consistently. Remember, it's your faithfulness to those revealed actions that'll make your vision happen. Chapter 3. The Place of Connections. One thing I've noticed about how God elevates people is that He connects them with the right people, people at the top, so they can learn from the best. When God sees someone with a real vision, He invests in their training, their development. And a lot of times, that means a season of being set apart, away from the crowd, so they can focus and grow. Chasing a vision often means keeping things quiet, and yeah, maybe even stepping away from people who might try to bring you down or make you feel small. During this time, God fills you up with wisdom while you're spending quality time with Him, doing those physical and spiritual things. He gives you a fresh outlook on life's problems, and you start to feel confident, like you're not wasting time. As you grow, you'll start attracting people who get your vision, who think like you. Maybe it starts with just 1 or 2 people, but God will keep sending more supporters who'll walk with you and help you succeed. Alright, so you're starting to connect with people, right? Now what? This is where your mind comes into play. We've got to remember, without God, we're not complete. And on the flip side, God's plans here on earth need people to make them happen. God is a God of His word, and He respects the authority He gave us. Like it says, we've got dominion, and He chooses to work through us to get stuff done. That's just how the universe works. Now, God knows everything, He's got perfect clarity beyond anything we can understand. He doesn't get confused or unsure like we do. So, if you want to make that vision He gave you a reality, you've got to work on your mind, learn about how to have good relationships with people. That'll help you navigate those relationships wisely and keep you from doing stuff that could mess up your vision. Look, God can handle anything, no limit to what He can carry. But us? We've got our limits. We all have our own baggage, some we can deal with, some we need help with. And that's important when we're talking about building good relationships. When God brings people into your life, it's not just about them helping you. It's about you being there for them too, being a source of support. Yeah, it's natural to want help, but remember, everyone's carrying their stuff. So, instead of just thinking about what you can get, think about what you can give. How can you use your skills, your talents, to help them out? Because your vision, your goals, they need your potential to become real, and God has given you what you need. Take some time to figure out what you're good at and how that can help the people God connects you with. You might be surprised. They might be looking for someone just like you. And here's the kicker, by helping them, you're helping yourself move forward faster. Okay, so I've noticed this, people who are really influential are usually busy, don't have a lot of time for everything. But you're on the rise, right? That means you've got this cool opportunity to step in and help. Figure out where you can be useful, and then do your best to be awesome at whatever you're doing for them. Think about what you're good at. What are your strengths? How can you use those to help the people God's putting in your path? Talk to them, find out what they need, and start using your skills to bless them, to support them. Now, here's a really important thing. Just because you're serving someone, doesn't mean you're serving God. Watch out for people who might seem influential, but are just using you for their gain, pretending it's serving someone. If someone you're helping doesn't see your potential, is always putting you down, or is trying to take advantage of you, they're not worth your time. You have to get out of those toxic relationships. Yeah, standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, it might be tough at first. But stick with it. Those problems won't last, and your courage will lead to growth and freedom. Alright, when we're talking about building connections, there's something else we need to talk about, having a wealthy mindset. And I'm not talking about money here. I'm talking about how you think, how you speak. I've learned how you talk about people in public says a lot about who you are, what you're here for. Have you ever seen a boss just tear down an employee? Or friends drift apart because someone's always talking trash? That sends a really clear message. When your default is to speak negatively about others, even those close to you, you inadvertently teach people that this is how you operate. They'll logically conclude they could be next. A wealthy mindset, on the other hand, understands the power of building others and maintaining a positive frame, even when faced with challenging situations or individuals that require honest discussion. Okay, so what does this wealthy mindset actually look like? It's about being prosperous in every area of your life, not just money. God's kingdom principles tell us He wants us to be healthy, just like our souls are healthy, 3 John 1:2. That means He cares about your body and your mind. A wealthy mindset means you take care of your resources, including your physical health. You must strike that balance, not ignoring your health, but also not going overboard and hurting yourself. Good management is key if you want to make your vision happen. You can't say you have this big vision and then totally ignore how you're taking care of yourself. And when it comes to money, a wealthy mindset means living within your means, not going into debt to impress people. Be happy with what you've got, don't feel pressured to keep up with the Joneses. Remember, you're a work in progress. I had this friend, and his story is just, wow. He was abandoned by his parents as a teenager. Imagine that. But even though he was struggling, he refused to let it break him. He wore his old clothes with pride, saved every penny he could, and focused on making himself better by reading and learning. Honestly, his determination and positive attitude were contagious. And eventually, things started to turn around for him. He got several jobs, people started helping him out, and he finally found some stability. What was crazy was how easily opportunities came to him. That's what a prosperity mindset can do. When you focus on growing as a person, on being resilient and living responsibly, God can do amazing things. You stay on the right track, and you'll start seeing God's guidance and provision more and more. And let's not forget about mind development. That's a huge part of being truly wealthy. It's about having a ton of mental resources, so you can handle whatever life throws your way. Investing in knowledge? It's not just a nice thing to do, it's a must. A mind that's loaded with knowledge lets you come up with solutions where other people are stuck. By working on your mind, you'll pick up super important skills, like communicating well, understanding your emotions, and getting along with people. Those skills are key for building good relationships. And when you've got a wealth of knowledge, you become valuable to others. And guess what? God will connect you with people who are just as passionate about growing and developing as you are. Chapter 4. The Place of Perspectives. Hey visionary. I'm proud of you. You've come a long way with keeping things under wraps. All that work you've been putting into the important stuff? It's paying off, you're standing out. And as you keep growing spiritually, people are going to notice. They'll be cheering you on, both in public and behind the scenes. Now, as you start moving up, you're going to get a lot of advice, a lot of suggestions. That's why it's so important that you've been learning to keep things private and building that strong connection with God. When you're spending time with Him, you'll know what He's saying, and you won't get thrown off by everyone else's opinions. All that prayer, fasting, and keeping things quiet? It's going to show as you move into this new level. Remember to seek God first, don't let other stuff distract you. Congrats on getting this far, and keep growing in wisdom and faith. Look, as someone with a vision, you need to get this, not everyone's opinion matters the same, especially when it comes from people who have a huge impact on your life. I remember this kid, a teenager, told me about his parents. He was passionate about farming, wanted to study agriculture, animals, fishing, the whole deal. But his parents said farming was for poor people, and he should go into medicine or nursing for a real future. He ended up agreeing, but you could tell his heart wasn't in it. It's easy to say, he should have stood up for himself, right? But the reality is, he was still dependent on his parents for everything: food, a place to sleep. The lot saying no could have been a disaster. They could have kicked him out, left him to fend for himself. And let's be real, some parents will go to extremes if their kids don't do what they want. That's why we need to spend time praying, to know what to do when we're in these tough spots. And look, let's be real about other people's advice. Sometimes it's a lifesaver. They can give you insights you'd never think of, and help you get through tough times. But everyone's journey is different, and you have to be flexible to make your dreams happen. I've got a story that shows this. My writing thing started back in 2020, 2018 though. I had this vision to inspire people with words. John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress really got to me, and I started writing with whatever I had, buying notebooks and pens with my lunch money. It wasn't easy, but I kept at it, and my love for writing just grew. But, I also had to deal with people saying negative stuff, which made me careful about who I showed my work to. Funny thing is, my physics teacher in high school had told me to go into civil engineering. He was talking about how real estate was booming and how electrical or civil engineering would be a smart move. That stuck with me, and I thought about studying civil engineering in college. But my heart was always with writing, and that's the path I ended up taking. So, after waiting around for 3 years, trying to get into college, I finally found a way to use my time. I spent those 3 years working on my writing and myself. They offered me a spot to study geology, but I knew that wasn't me. I wanted to focus on writing, but, being dependent, I didn't have total control over my choices. Before I knew it, I was doing a daily part-time computer science program at the Polytechnic of Ibadan. Everyone thought I'd be great at it, but my heart just wasn't in it. It took a lot, but I eventually dropped out to focus on writing. That's when the opinions started flying. People were telling me the kind of books I wanted to write weren't popular anymore, that everyone was glued to their phones and social media. Man, those differing opinions messed with my head. I went through months of depression. Writing was the only thing that helped. I'd just pour everything onto paper, and slowly, I started to feel better. Things began to change when I got a job. Finally, I had the time and space to write. Now, I feel a lot more at peace, balancing my writing with my ability to do my own thing. But even at work, I realized people weren't going to stop telling me who I should be and how I should live. And when they noticed I could speak well, they started giving me all this advice about my future, usually with good intentions. But I had this problem. I felt like if I didn't listen, especially to my bosses, I was being disrespectful. Even though they meant well, I just couldn't shake this feeling that their ideas for my life weren't the same as mine. The vision God put in my head? It stayed the same, and I knew I had to stick with it. If I'd listened to everyone else, I might have missed out on serving at my place of work, which has been amazing. We can't let other people run our lives. God's voice has to be the one we listen to. If He has spoken, we can trust He'll make it work out. Now, that doesn't mean everyone else's advice is useless. They can give us some really good tips on how to reach our goals. For example, I knew writing was my main thing, but I also realized I couldn't ignore computers. The world's digital, and if I wanted to protect my work and succeed, I needed those skills. Honestly, the advice from my parents, my brothers, and some other people around me has been a big help. Right now, I'm studying library and information science at the National Open University of Nigeria, and I'm also doing a 6-month cybersecurity training. That has taught me that we shouldn't just brush off what people say. We should think about how it can help us with our mission. So, here's the thing, if you can figure out what people are saying, what their information or advice means, you can find the good in it and use it in your own life. For me, knowing basic computer stuff has made editing my writing so much easier. If I'd just stuck to pen and paper, I wouldn't be where I am today. You've got to have that perception, that ability to see the hidden value in what people say. And this next story? It's all about having the right people around you, people who give good advice. I don't know who was mentoring this guy, but they helped him out. He studied architecture in college, but after he graduated, he couldn't find a job. He was stuck. Then, a friend told him to learn some other skills, and he ended up learning how to bake cakes. Now, this guy was smart. He combined his architecture knowledge with his baking skills and started making these amazing house-shaped cakes. He sold them for a premium price, too. Same ingredients, but with a creative twist. You've probably heard of Bishop David Oyedepo, right? And that huge ark they're building in Canaan land, in Oda? Well, get this, he studied architecture. Makes sense, right? God often uses the skills we already have to make our visions happen. It just makes things easier. And speaking of Bishop Oyedepo, he is a well-known minister, over 70 now, and his life is a perfect example of what happens when you're obedient and faithful. If you want the whole story, you should check out his books or any biographies written about him. He talks about how, when his ministry started taking off, he got flooded with invitations from all over, telling him to expand. But he stuck to what God originally told him. He stayed obedient. And that's been the key to his success. People see him as a symbol of prosperity, some even call him the headquarters of prosperity. You know Dr. Miles Monroe, right? Man of God left a huge impact, and his teachings still hit home, even now. He told this story once, about a woman trying to get him to have sex with her. And what did he do? He ran. That story ties into what we're talking about, because some people think that marrying someone out of pressure or obligation is going to somehow fast-track their vision or make their life better. Some might even suggest, manipulative stuff, like getting pregnant or getting someone pregnant to force a marriage. I'm telling you, that's a hard no. We've got to remember, God's rules are way more important than what anyone else thinks. People have all kinds of opinions, and some of them might sound good. But you've got to measure everything against God's word before you do anything. Chapter 5. The Place of Misunderstanding. So, like the title says, in pursuit of vision, making your dreams real? It takes planning, thinking things through. And I'm picturing 3 kinds of people reading this book. First, there are those of you who've got a clear vision from God, burning inside you, right? You're itching to know how to make it happen, like yesterday. Then, some VE already taken some big steps. You've got some of the details, and you're working on making it real. And finally, some are still looking for that vision, spending time with God. Maybe you've got an idea, but you're not sure if it's from Him or just your thoughts. Doesn't matter which group you're in, if you're serious, you're probably spending time alone with God, praying, thinking, planning. And I want to say, I respect that. But there's something you need to be ready for, people not getting you. So, if you're leading with a God-given vision, you've got to know, people are going to misunderstand you. They're going to twist your words, misinterpret your actions. You'll be doing something because God told you to, and they'll think you're just trying to get ahead or show off. Even little disagreements or mistakes, they'll blow them way out of proportion. You'll start a project, and they'll be all critical and doubtful. You'll try to bless someone with a speech or an action, and they'll think you're being arrogant. You just need to be ready for it, because it's part of the deal. A lot of times, it starts when people think you're too good to mess up. They see you as a spiritual giant because you spend time with God, and they expect you to be perfect. They start putting you on a pedestal, showing you all this respect. Now, yeah, it's nice to be honored for your hard work and your faith. But you have to remember that respect can turn into unrealistic expectations, and then into people coming after you. So, while you're enjoying the good vibes, get ready for the tough times that might be coming. One thing you can't deny about people in general? They're easily swayed, they jump to conclusions. Especially these days, with all the social media and distractions, people don't think deeply about things before they have an opinion. What makes you different is that you spend time with God, which has sharpened your understanding of life. You realize that everyone's unique, special to God, but we're all at different stages of spiritual growth. God talks to people in a way they can understand, using words and ideas that make sense to them. So, when you share your message, your inventions, your ideas, get ready for some people to miss the point. They just don't see the bigger picture, or they don't think as deeply. Take the airplane, for example. The Wright brothers invented it, and it changed everything about travel. But people still find stuff to complain about. Even nowadays, Some even say it's witchcraft, that flying is the devil's way of killing people. Seriously. And with all the amazing things technology has done, some people are still saying it's going to destroy us all. Even preachers who are doing great things for God's kingdom, helping people, get accused of being selfish. The tough truth about life is that if you're trying to do something good for people, someone's going to come out of the woodwork to tear you down. And let's be real, negative news spreads like wildfire, way faster than the good stuff. So, you might find yourself struggling to fight back against all the lies and criticism. But here's the thing, you can't let that criticism kill your spirit. You've got to remember, if your heart is in the right place, you'll be proven right in the end, even if you mess up or people try to drag you down. So, how do you deal with all the misinformation and get your reputation back on track? The first step is hard, but it's key to making your vision happen. Think about the Apostle Paul. He used to persecute Christians, but then he became one of us. He said we shouldn't worry about anything, but instead, we should pray to God and thank Him for everything, Philippians 4:6. That first step, not worrying, it's tough when you're getting slammed with misunderstandings. But the enemy can mess with your head, playing all those bad scenarios over and over, telling you things are going to get worse. If you let that happen, you'll lose way more than you already have. Now, this next story might not be a perfect fit, but it shows you what I'm talking about. Think about King David, a big deal in the Bible, right? He messed up big time, killed a soldier, and got his wife pregnant. And he paid for it. Like it says in Reverend F.W. Farrar's book, Solomon, His Life and Times, David got so messed up by what happened, he started ignoring his duties as king. His son, Absalom, saw his chance and started turning the people against David. He ended up leading a coup, and David had to run from his palace. That's a huge fall from grace, and it shows you what happens when you let bad stuff crush you. The whole point of those challenges, those misunderstandings you're going to face, it's to get you so discouraged that you just give up on what you're supposed to be doing. You've got to see it for what it is. Think about the prophets in the Old Testament. They got slammed with opposition, people twisting their words, even from the kings of Israel, a nation that was supposed to fear God. They went through hell, thrown into wells, all kinds of persecution. But they didn't quit. They kept going because they knew it wasn't just about them. See, you're not the main target here. Other people's destinies are tied to yours. Look at Moses. He tried to save his people, killed an Egyptian, and had to run for it. He lost sight of his calling for a while, until God showed up in that burning bush. Now, some people criticize Moses for arguing with God, for being hesitant about going back to Egypt. But, honestly, I get it. If you were in his shoes, would you want to go back to save people who were just going to misunderstand you and fight you every step of the way? So, how do we stop ourselves from getting eaten up by worry when things go south? Whether it's because we messed up, missed something, or people are fighting us on what God told us to do. The answer's in the good news about Jesus. It helps us see life the right way. It's not about what happens, it's about how we see it. And the cool thing about the kingdom's rules? It's not just words, it's real stories of people who went through the same stuff, for the sake of God's kingdom, and came out on top. Think about Abraham. He lied to save his skin, but he stayed at peace until God stepped in. Or Joseph, who had all kinds of trouble even though he was a positive guy, but he made it through. And Moses, who had to run because people misunderstood him, but God hugely used him. The Bible's full of stories like that. People who had God's vision, but still got into tough spots, and God rescued them. Those stories remind us we're not alone in this. Alright, so what do you do next? Find a story in the Bible that hits home, that feels like it's talking about your situation, and dig into it. Think about it deeply. Let the good parts of that story push out all the negative junk swirling around in your head. If the pressure's too much, and you can't hold on to those good thoughts, pray those stories in tongues, knowing God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Believe that if God fixed problems back then, He can fix yours too. Keep praying, keep meditating, keep fasting, and trust that He's going to work it all out. When you decide to walk with God, even when things are out of your hands, He'll be right there with you. And after you've done all that, just keep doing what we talked about in the earlier chapters, and get ready, because I've got even more for you in the chapters to come. Chapter 6. The Place of Forgiveness. Making that God-given vision a reality is a journey, a process. Like traveling from one place to another, you are going to see new things, go through different stages. You are moving forward, getting closer to where you're supposed to be. And even if you have seen some progress, God's still growing you, showing you more things to aim for, more goals to reach. You are pushing forward, driven to do everything He has called you to do. And I've realized something: forgiveness. It is not just an option, it is a must. Holding on to unforgiveness and anger? It will mess up your destiny even before you realize it has happened. If you are walking your path, and someone you trusted betrays you, hurts you badly, you have every right to be angry, and you cannot stop talking about it. But if you do not deal with that pain, it'll start to poison everything. It will mess up your ability to make a positive difference in the world. When you let bitterness and anger take hold, they will poison everything. Your relationships, your judgment, your progress, your whole destiny. Forgiveness is not a maybe, it's a must if you want to move forward and do what you're here to do. Think about a public speaker, someone God has called to talk about a certain topic. But if they are holding on to bitterness and unforgiveness, they'll start to go off track. They will start focusing on the person who hurt them, trying to make them look bad. At first, it might seem like a small thing, just a little detour in their message. But if they don't stop it, it will take over. Before they know it, they are not doing what God called them to do anymore. They have turned into a ministry of criticism instead. I saw how the Christian journey works when I read John Bunyan's book, The Pilgrim's Progress. As we walk with God, all kinds of distractions are going to pop up, trying to pull us away from our purpose. And some of them are hard to ignore, because they look like they're important. Offenses are going to happen. And what makes them sting even more is that they usually come from the people you least expect, people you trust, maybe even people you love. It hurts, bad. But we must be ready to deal with it, strong in our faith. When it comes to offenses and forgiveness, there are 3 things we need to figure out: what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. First off, we have to accept that those unexpected hits are going to come. Think about the times you've been hurt, especially by people close to you. Maybe a friend spilled your secrets, broke your trust. Maybe a mentor or someone you're mentoring publicly criticized your work. Or a business partner messed around with the money. Those things hurt. But as someone with a vision, you should expect the unexpected and have a plan. Now that we know offenses are coming, we need to learn how to forgive and be fast about it. But when exactly should you forgive? You might be surprised, but it's even before they offend you. So, how can you achieve this? It begins with a heart that believes in righteousness. Then, it's crucial to vocalize your forgiveness, declaring it out loud, repeatedly. Say it with conviction: I forgive those who have wronged me, and I will forgive anyone who may try to harm my personal life, vision, or reputation. Notice the connection to salvation. Forgiveness is a path to freedom, a way to escape the traps set before you. By choosing to forgive preemptively, you're safeguarding your heart, mind, and spirit from the destructive power of offense. When dealing with offenses and forgiveness, it's vital to leave the crime scene promptly. What does this mean? Simply put, acknowledge that the hurtful event has occurred, it's in the past, and recognize that its effects may still be present. However, to avoid getting trapped in a cycle of pain and negativity, you must mentally depart from that scene. So, how do you forgive before the offense? You have to replace those potentially painful memories with a new picture in your head, one that's all about the future of the vision God gave you. Focus on what's possible, the promises ahead. That'll help you move forward, without being weighed down by stuff that hasn't even happened yet. Imagine someone trying to trash your reputation, making your followers lose faith in you. It's intense, even your die-hard supporters are wondering if they should stick with the vision. In those moments, you have to take it to God in prayer. But how do you do that? For me, it's not about praying in tongues and asking God to punish the person. It's more like talking to a friend. I get comfortable, speak from my heart, and talk to God like He's right there, because the Holy Spirit is a person. By praying that way, real and conversational, you can tell God everything that's bothering you, all your feelings and thoughts, knowing He'll guide you through it. When I'm talking to God about it, I follow His lead. If He tells me to open the Bible or pray in tongues, I do it. But if not, I just tell Him how I feel, even if I need to cry, and then I'm done. Next up, I make a real effort to change my mindset. I dive into learning something new, something that fills my head with good thoughts, so I can push out those painful memories. It helps me see opportunities even in the middle of all the mess. I've learned the hard way that if I don't do this, if I keep thinking about the offense, I start to get bitter. And that does way more damage than the original problem, and it stops me from moving forward. After you've told God everything, you have to leave it there and keep going. Whether He fixes it right away or not, trust that His name will be honored. Remember, He gave you that vision, and His plan will happen no matter what. You've learned some tough lessons, and you're stronger now. If someone tries to mess you up and then asks for forgiveness after you've recovered, forgive them and give them space. But be careful about putting them back in the same spot they were before, until you know they won't do it again. So, really, how can we be sure they won't just do it all over again? I mean, it's a lot to figure out, right? But, character, it's like smoke. It always finds a way out, eventually. You've got to really watch their habits now, see if they're still heading down that same path. And yeah, it's tough, because everyone's got their own thing going on, their own unique way of living. But let me try to break it down a bit. Maybe we can walk through an example, pick an offense, and talk it through. Then, you can kind of apply that to other situations, other people who've hurt you. Like, say, someone who cheated on you, or someone who blew through your savings. Or, we could even look at a situation where someone tried to trash your reputation with your boss, behind your back. Let's try and work through those 3 scenarios, see what we can learn. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Your spouse cheated, and now they're asking for forgiveness. Look, I think forgiveness is important here, for you, more than anything is. Holding on to revenge, that's just going to hurt you in the long run. But, of course, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You need to figure out if they're genuinely sorry, right? If they've changed. And that's not as hard as it seems. I can show you how to spot the signs. Can I ask you something? It might sound a little weird, but, do you remember the first time you felt aroused with your partner? I'm not talking about a little spark from a kiss or a quick smooch. I mean, the kind of arousal that starts in your head after spending a good amount of time with them. That's what I'm getting at, that good amount of time. Right? It means that if the time spent building friendship and romance with you led to sexual feelings, the same thing happened between your spouse and whoever they cheated with. So, how do you know if they're truly sorry? Well, it's pretty simple. They'll cut all ties with that person. And they'll also make sure they're not having the kinds of conversations that could lead to those feelings again, with anyone of the opposite sex. Someone who started down the road of adultery by flirting with someone at work isn't going to keep flirting with that same person if they're truly repentant. There'll be a clear boundary. They'll be open and honest with you about it. And it won't just be with that one person, they'll be careful about their interactions with all members of the opposite sex. You know, it might be helpful to understand why they got so close to that other person. Maybe it's just how they are, or maybe you both haven't been connecting as much as you should. Though let's be clear, that doesn't excuse anything. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay, so, next up, someone blowing through your money. This could be someone at work, like your financial secretary, or maybe a friend you trusted with a business investment or your savings. Or, someone who borrowed money for an emergency and just never paid you back. Maybe it even had serious consequences, like forcing you to drop out of school, or worse, contributing to the loss of someone you loved. Just like that, your money's gone, and the damage is huge. Then, out of the blue, they come back asking for forgiveness. Forgiving them is tough, right? I mean, even if you decide to forgive, you're not going to forget. That kind of thing sticks with you. So, if you're thinking about giving them another chance, you need to be careful. You've got to figure out if they're likely to do the same thing again. Just like with the cheating spouse we talked about, where they change their communication habits, this person, or these people, they'll need to change their whole lifestyle. Maybe they'll stop spending recklessly, or going out to clubs all the time, things like that. But, how are you going to see these changes if they're not working with you anymore? You could rehire them, but you'd need to put someone in charge to keep an eye on them. And don't just give them their old position back right away. You need to watch them closely, see if they're still showing any signs of being greedy or selfish. Now, how long do you keep watching? That's the tough part. You've got to be patient, even if it takes a year to rebuild that trust. And honestly, sometimes, it might be better to move them to a different department, where they're not handling money directly. Okay, so what about a friend who blew through your money? Well, honestly, don't lend them any more. They can find money somewhere else. And if they're holding on to resentment because of that, it might be time to end the friendship. Remember, sometimes, it's healthier to keep certain people at a distance. And what about those people who tried to trash your reputation with your boss? Keep your distance. Be very careful about what you say about them to others. You need to be wise about this. The reason we have to take these situations seriously is because your well-being matters. If people keep hurting you over and over, you could end up in a really bad place, a place where it's hard to recover. So, when you're thinking about forgiving someone and keeping them in your life, you need to be sure you're making the right call. Forgiveness can be hard, especially if they keep hurting you even after you've forgiven them. That's why you've gotta stay alert and protect yourself from getting hurt again, because that'll just slow you down and mess up God's plan for your life. Chapter 7. The Place of Persecution. We've touched on the whole misunderstanding and forgiveness thing, and that's all good. But, look, we need to be real here. This isn't just about personal squabbles. It's a proper clash, a struggle between different ways of doing things. If you're pushing for something, trying to build something, you will get pushed back. That's just how it goes. And, often, those giving you the most grief? They're the ones with a bit more clout than you. Dealing with the little annoyances, the ones that aren't a threat, that's manageable. But what about the big shots? The boss who suddenly got it in for you because you're shining a bit too bright for their liking? Or that senior colleague who's trying to sabotage you at every turn? The people who hold the power, the ones who can make your life difficult, maybe even take away your livelihood. Or maybe it's someone with a big online presence, or someone in your field who's already established, just casually tearing you down, undermining everything you're trying to do. It's rough. And you can't just ignore it, can you? If you want to get somewhere, you've got to be aware of what's happening and figure out how to handle it. You need to be aware of the real fight. I've heard Bishop Oyedepo say, time and again, that we should be the ones people envy, not pity. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? But then life throws you a curveball, those challenges that just chip away at your spirit. And that's the whole point, isn't it? To wear you down, to muddle your thinking, to get you to drop what you're doing and start chasing after every critic. Don't fall for it. Seriously, don't let them distract you. Look, you're going to face some tough times. You'll be wronged, and it'll be plain as day that you've done nothing to deserve it. Sometimes, you just have to endure a bit of hardship. It's not about a lack of faith, not at all. It's about letting your faith guide you through, building your patience, so you emerge stronger, better than you were before. You'll come out the other side changed. Right, so, what's the plan then? Because let's be honest, this isn't some minor issue we're talking about. If you've been sticking to some of those ideas we talked about before, like keeping things close to your chest, that might give you a bit of a buffer. But even then, there are times when you're just blindsided, aren't there? You'd swear certain people wouldn't dream of coming after you, and then, bam! They're the ones trying to drag you down. And because it's so unexpected, it hits you harder. If it were some random person, someone who doesn't know you from Adam, you could probably brush it off. But it's the people close to you, isn't it? That's what stings. But you've got to remember, you're here for a reason, to make a difference. So, you've got to be ready for this. It's like, remember those apostles in the Bible, getting whipped for talking about Jesus? That kind of thing happens. You have to be prepared. Look, the first thing you need to do is bring God into this. Absolutely. Get Him involved. Tell Him everything. That person you trusted, who's now turned on you. Tell Him about it. Every single detail you can remember. Don't even rush into asking Him to fix it, just lay it all out there. Talk to Him. Then stay there in His presence, reflecting on the scriptures until He tells you what to do. Listen for His guidance. Wait. Right, and here's another thing to keep in mind. The whole point of those who want to bring you down? It's to steal, kill, and destroy. Anyone who's openly attacking you, whether they're using their position or whatever means they have, they're missing something you possess. That spark, that potential, that thing that makes you stand out. They're envious. They wish you didn't have it, because they see you rising, and it bothers them. They might be older, more established, and it eats at them that you're achieving things they haven't. They're struggling. They're missing out on the very thing you have. They might be operating with a Saul mindset, chasing down the David in you, even to the point of wanting to destroy you. That potential, that drive, it's yours. They're trying to crush your spirit because, if they can't have it, they don't want you to have it either. It's a kind of sad situation when you think about it. So, do you see the silver lining here? Can you see the good in this difficult time? It's like that old saying, isn't it? Only a fruit-bearing mango tree gets stones thrown at it. If you weren't producing anything worthwhile, nobody would bother with you. They wouldn't waste their energy. So, if you're facing persecution, if you're being attacked because you're positive, or because you're putting in the work, whether it's at your job, your place of worship, or anywhere else, it's a sign. It means God's with you. Remember, you're meant to be admired, not pitied. Keep that in your mind. Alright, so, now that we've got a handle on what's going on, what's the next step? Good question, that. Now that you understand the goal is to break your spirit, you absolutely cannot stop doing what you're meant to do. Look, sometimes, you'll need to keep things under wraps for a while. That doesn't mean you've given up, or that it's over. You keep pushing forward, no matter what. And if you're facing opposition that's too strong to tackle head on, you need to be patient, be smart. But you don't stop. You keep doing what God's called you to do, even if it's the last thing you do. You're built for this. You might get a rough time, like those apostles, but you get back up and keep going. You might even get locked up, but that doesn't stop you. You keep working, even from behind bars, and you do it with style. And if those envious people, those Sauls, are trying to take you out, you might need to find a safe place, but you keep working. If they say you can't rule in the palace right now, you build your kingdom in a cave. You gain experience, so when you return to the palace, you're stronger, wiser. You don't stop because things get tough. No, you don't. You keep moving forward. Even if the very tools you thought were essential, the things you relied on to make that project happen, are taken away, you don't give up. Even if you think you need those specific abilities to get it done. They're gone, but you keep going. You keep going because God will bring people to help, who will use their skills as if they were your own. And that support will come because you've decided, firmly, that you won't let any opposition stop you. And when you come out the other side of that difficult period, you'll be stronger, wiser. Maybe you made a mistake, or maybe something was misunderstood. Either way, you'll be all right. Nothing can hold you back. Peace be with you. The career and business part. I'm sure you've come across the idea of dominion before. It's essentially the same concept, making sure people are influenced by what you do. We've touched on personal development earlier because that's the crucial first step, you can't skip it. So, now that you're aware of what the future holds for you, it's time to look at the other essential aspects for your growth and for fulfilling what God has called you to do. In this section, you'll see from a spiritual perspective what God has in store for you and how much He wants you to succeed by actively engaging and making an impact in your field. Ready? Let's get into it. Chapter 1. What do I need to be the best in my field? Hey there. Now, please don't get the wrong idea, this part isn't going to make you feel like you're not just passing through this world. Not at all. What I want to do is show you, through the Bible, how these things we're talking about really matter in our lives. First off, it's important to remember that Jesus himself walked this path. The scriptures tell us he was constantly going around, focused on his Father's work. Oh, did I say work? Yes, work. Is it different from ministry? Well, it is a ministry, but it seems like Christ viewed it with a real sense of purpose, almost like a crucial task. Maybe, just maybe, thinking about it this way is what helped him get up and ready on time after praying, ensuring he could get out and about when he needed to. It's so clear how much of a career aspect there was to his ministry, you know? You really can't deny how incredibly hard he worked. He had this way of drawing people to wherever he went. I mean, can you even picture it? Getting people to listen to his teachings for days up on those mountains. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often did he stop for breaks? Did they have any back and forth, maybe some Q&A sessions? It must have been something special about how he communicated, because people genuinely enjoyed being with him on those mountains, just soaking in what he had to share. You know what's truly amazing about him? He was so intentional in everything he did. Here's God in human form, said to know everything. Yet, he set examples by making sure he spent time with the elders in the temple, asking questions about Israel's history before his arrival. I can just picture him standing up, almost rehearsing, the same way Moses, Joshua, Caleb, David, Solomon, and other courageous kings guided people in following the Lord. And I can imagine him reading the part where Abraham was about to pray for the king who was going to marry his wife before God intervened, and Jesus probably chuckled, completely confident that the hearts of leaders are in God's hands. Then, the next day, he'd go out and preach his ministry with that same confidence, knowing fully well that God was with him. After all, he is God in human form. But it wasn't something that just happened overnight. He cultivated that purposeful, almost career aspect of his ministry, and it's undeniable. Have you ever considered this about him? Maybe he didn't just study those old stories to gauge the confidence of the people involved. I'm sure he dug into those stories because they are true and reliable. And maybe, through those stories, he was also honing his public speaking skills. You know, it makes you wonder where he even got the idea for using stories and parables in the first place. Could it have come from all those events during the journey from Egypt to Israel? Or maybe from the book of Judges or 1 Kings? Perhaps the stones and other symbolic things used to teach the Israelites helped him, as a man, realize the power of a good story in public speaking. Like that golden rule I heard from Isaac Sirwanga, when you want to make a point, share a captivating story that really grabs people's attention and maybe even changes how they see things. He learned these techniques. He was so focused. Honestly, isn't that incredible? It's also striking me that Jesus probably wasn't wearing rags. I mean, would the soldiers have even cared about his clothes if they weren't decent? Yeah, that makes sense. He likely knew that to be an effective speaker, he needed to dress well, smell good, and be approachable. Maybe he even paid attention to what he ate, because he didn't seem to have a bad odor even when he taught for days. I have no idea if he bathed daily up on the mountain or not. But if the people there had limited resources to eat, they probably weren't bathing much either. But you know what? He probably didn't smell bad because he was mindful of his diet. It's just one of those things that would help him be a successful minister back then. And of course, you know that Jesus' ministry wasn't just about public speaking. He healed the sick, raised the dead, and so much more. And most importantly, he died for our sins, right? Alright, let's think about another side of Jesus. The fact that he rehearsed in the temple, reading the scrolls, shows he was developing his vocabulary. He was a skilled speaker, and it wasn't just by chance. If he couldn't read or write, he wouldn't have had the confidence to speak in public. He understood what it took to capture people's attention, and it worked for him. And you know what's interesting? He knew his audience. While it's commonly believed that his impact was limited before his death and resurrection, we also have to consider that Christ knew the Israelites were his primary focus. He studied the scriptures, their history, even their general situation, and understood how to use their language to connect with them. He wouldn't have used modern slang because it wouldn't resonate. He knew his target audience inside and out. He knew that referencing their shared stories and culture would make it easy for thousands to follow him to the mountains, where he'd spend days teaching them about God's plan of salvation. When God gives you a vision, there's a lot of work involved, and I'd even call it a spiritual guide because God supports effort. Work itself is a spiritual practice, whether we realize it or not. Haven't you noticed it in the Bible? It talks about the working of miracles. That shows work is involved. You can't underestimate its importance. The reason some people who don't even believe in God seem to be successful is that they're putting certain spiritual principles into action. And they understand that if they don't put in the effort, they won't see results. Do you know why it works for them? It's because of the spiritual laws that were established before the world even began. It's a fixed system, you can't change it. You just have to align yourself with it because it's essential. So, what should I do if God gives me a vision? Well, I'd do everything necessary to gather all the knowledge I need to excel in that area. Then, I'd verify it with the Word of God, and finally, I'd take bold steps based on what I know, trusting in God's support. Chapter 2. Who am I sent to? So, just like the title of this book suggests, what to do, when to do it, and how to do it when God gives you a vision, here's another important question we all need to consider. Let me share something with you from a kingdom perspective. Do you recall that Bible verse about the Great Commission? I'm pretty sure you do, unless you were always skipping Sunday school as a kid, just teasing. Okay, let me tell you a quick story. There was this incredible freedom fighter who came and did everything he could to help humanity, and it truly made a difference. So, when he was about to return to heaven after his resurrection, he called his disciples and told them, "Hey everyone, please don't forget to take this good news I've shared with you to the whole world. Go to Samaria, Judea, and even the farthest parts of the earth." You remember that story now, right? Yeah, I'm sure you do. Now, let's think about it a bit more deeply. Have you ever considered that he wasn't just talking to one person? Boom. That's a key thing to understand. Okay, let's dig a little deeper. When he said, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all nations," he was essentially saying, "Hey Peter, you go to country A, Bartholomew, you go to country D, Philip, you're going to visit country C. You see what I mean? So, there's no need for Peter to struggle to get into city D because Bartholomew is already there. You get the idea, right? Can you see now why the first point I made in this book is to keep things private and pray to God for more wisdom as you move forward? It's because you genuinely need that wisdom to identify the people you're meant to reach. You need the insight to avoid being in the wrong place, wasting precious time while the right people are out there, suffering because you're not present. Hey, amazing person, you need clear direction. Okay, let me give you an example. In my country, the youth population is the largest. We don't have as many older people anymore, and that gives me hope that many young people are my target audience. Honestly, some older people have shown interest in my books too, and they're wonderful. But who is my main target? Well, young people who are driven to succeed and who will appreciate that my books aren't overly long, since they're looking for solutions to the topics I write about without having to wade through a 500-page book to find the answer on page 403. And where can I find them? Lots of places: at work, in school, places of worship, NGOs, and many others. Now, what about those who aren't interested in what I do? Well, that's simple. I'll keep praying for them and patiently wait for God to touch their hearts, maybe through another speaker or even me eventually. But forcing them to read my books is not part of my approach. My books aren't for everyone, not even for all young people. Figuring out who you're meant to reach is so important, especially in today's world where we need to conserve our energy. There will be times of trial and error, and that's okay. But it's crucial to first observe the people around you, wherever you go, to see if they show any interest in what you offer. From there, you can gradually start to identify your target audience. For example, some people just naturally don't like upbeat music or wouldn't use a certain product. It's been ingrained in them for a long time, and sometimes it's simply better not to try and force them to listen to your music or use your products against their will. Let me give you another example. If you're Nigerian, reading this book, you probably know some churches that use bells during their services. When the pastor or whoever is leading rings the bell, it signals that the service is about to start. God is present, so you need to be attentive and in order. Now, some churches don't do that. The leader might just stand up and say hallelujah or something like let's begin to worship the Lord. Same God, different ways of worshiping. Now, tell me, does that mean God is present in one church and absent in another? Not. But some people would never want to go to a church that doesn't use bells. Maybe they're used to the sound, or they have other personal reasons. But that doesn't mean God dislikes them or that churches without bells are forbidden by Him. Like Pastor Rick Warren rightly said in The Purpose-Driven Church, You need all kinds of churches for all kinds of people. The main focus should always be God, but the style of worship can vary. Maybe some believe in using bells during worship, while others prefer drums. It's all the same. But everything should always be checked against God's word to make sure we don't go astray. So please, gather knowledge, study everything you need to about the people you want to sell your products to or offer your services to. Prepare how you'll approach your target market. Ask questions to find out if they genuinely need what you're offering, and use persuasive language to bring them to you. And most importantly, even if you only find one person among 1,000 people who is interested in what you do, go ahead and announce your products to everyone. Who knows if that one person will convince the other 999 to become interested in your offer. Shalom. Chapter 3. How do I get the resources needed to thrive in my field? We need to talk about something super important, getting what we need to actually do what we feel called to do, you know? Like, even this book, I needed a computer to make it happen. And computers cost money, right? So, it was either scribble this all down and pay someone to type it up, or just do it myself. And it's like that with everything, whether it's something practical or something more spiritual. There are just things you need to really thrive. And figuring out those spiritual habits helps you get those things. That's why we're even talking about this. Not having what you need to move forward gives way to frustration in our lives. Every single day, there's something new you realize you need, and you need to be on top of it. Being content isn't about just settling and not wanting more. It's more about being smart with what you've got while you're putting in the work to get what you need to level up in whatever God's calling you to. Alright, so let's dive into some basics that every area needs to take off. We can't pretend we don't need God's backing, because honestly, we need time and chances to be on our side. Then there's the whole thing about having good, solid relationships. And yeah, we can't forget about the money side of things to get stuff done. Seriously, now's the time to start thinking about all this. So, a big question to ask yourself is, how do you get the resources you need in your field? Prayer is huge, like, you need to be close to God because He sees everything that's going on. The way His kingdom works is about growing in wisdom, favor, and how you connect with both God and people. And guess what? All that good stuff comes from being in God's presence. Ever stop to think why you look at someone and think, wow, not so attractive, and then someone else walks in and you're like, okay, they're beautiful? I mean, what makes you think that? Well, it's not entirely our fault. Our brains kind of get wired a certain way, and we just go along with it. But have you ever seen someone who, by all accounts, maybe shouldn't be considered good looking, but people are still drawn to them and tell them they look great? That's often God's favor shining on them. When it comes to resources, I kind of break it down into three things: spiritual resources, resourceful people, and actual, material things. Every question we have about moving forward usually circles back to these three. So, we need to be clear on what we're getting into. Spiritual resources are the things you need to make life work well for you here on earth. Some things help you stick around in that place of confidence in God's support until you're sure, and then you can take those big leaps based on what He's told you. It could be as simple as praying, meditating, or even regular fasting, just to have that spiritual backing for whatever you're doing. I'm no pastor, so I can't go super deep into this, but I know for sure that I need to be consistent in my relationship with God. I need to pray and fast, and I definitely can't skip meditating on His Word. Those are the spiritual resources I need to stay connected, and I'm going to keep doing them until I leave this planet because, honestly, everything about my life now and later depends on it. Period. Now, when we talk about resourceful people, you must be smart about knowing how to connect with the right folks in your field. And sometimes, it's going to take your time and energy. You might even have to work on that pride thing that stops people from seeing the potential in those who seem less important. You have to realize that maybe you can't get straight to the top person, but you can connect with their assistant. That might just be your way in. Seriously, if those connected people have a book club once a month, I'm clearing my schedule to be there. If any of them invite me over, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going to be asking for bus fare because I believe there's always enough. I'll go there and not act like I haven't eaten in days. I'll use that one chance to create a good vibe with their family so I get invited back. If they need help with something I can do, I'm jumping in to volunteer because it's all about building a solid relationship, one that might not pay off right now but will show its value in the next decade or so. I'm not going to stop being kind because resourceful people are usually resourceful because of how they think. And if I need to stop bad-mouthing people because of this, I'll do it. I'm going to be super intentional about building those quality connections because I need them to grow in my field. Okay, let's talk money because we can't ignore it. I know it's tough, and so many great ideas die because of a lack of funds. I'm going to be straight with you here. I remember hearing that not every passion puts food on the table right away. Sometimes, you have to do other things to make it all work. Let me tell you my own writing story. When I started, I was still living with my parents. I was just writing, not knowing how my books would ever go global, like the name Books Global suggests. But I knew I had to find a way to pay for it. So, I started doing what I needed to do and got a job where I got a paycheck every month. With that money, I could live and also fund my books. If I hadn't gotten that job, you probably wouldn't be reading this right now. Sometimes, your journey won't be easy, especially if you're starting from zero. You might have to juggle a few things while staying true to your passions and making sure you're still developing them, even with a demanding job. They don't need to know all your plans or when you might leave that job. Keep it to yourself and focus on being a great employee while also putting in the extra hours in your free time, even sacrificing some sleep, to work on your potential. Now's the time to save and invest until you're strong enough to stand on your own. Don't forget, if your passion isn't paying the bills right now, don't quit your other work, and don't give up on your passion until it can support you and maybe even others. So, keep asking yourself, how am I going to get what I need? And then do whatever it takes by listening to God's guidance when you're spending quiet time. Trust me, you won't regret it. Chapter 4. How will my field look in the next few years? Ugh, yeah, it's kinda terrifying, right? Especially for me, because figuring out how to do what I'm called to do might mean I have to start doing stuff I'm not comfortable with. I am sure it's the same for you with your area of calling. Just being an author can feel like a tough spot sometimes. You know, for some of us, we could be out there changing the world, but if we're not smart about things, we could still end up with nothing in our pockets. Like, maybe God has told you your music is going to be huge, but you're stuck dealing with people who wouldn't dream of paying you for it. As an author, I feel like my situation is even a bit worse, especially now with the internet, where anything you've worked so hard on can just be downloaded for free by anyone who knows their way around a computer. Ebooks might bring in a little cash at first, but then you see it start to drop because suddenly your ebooks are all over the place online. And it's like, the ways you thought you'd get your books out there? People aren't doing that anymore. It's all about audiobooks now, which most people in my country aren't keen on paying for. And for video stuff, you have to wait until you've got thousands of views and subscribers on YouTube before you even see a penny. It's so frustrating, you know? Something has to give. Yeah, I knew deep down that these challenges were coming. But I also know that as I grow as an author, I can still make good money. But I can't just sit around, I've got to take action. I need to do whatever it takes to make sure people recognize me for what I do, plain and simple. So, what do you think your field will look like in the next 10 years or so? God indeed gives us the vision, but the world is changing so fast, right? You've got to keep up and make sure you're still solving problems for people. Whether you're in movies, music, tech, coaching, or even if you've got a bunch of different talents, what's the future looking like? Are those things you're putting your energy into now really going to work out the way you hope? How's technology already shaking things up in your world? Are you ready to roll with it, or are you going to stick to the old ways? I remember this one time when I was about to get one of my books edited. It felt like a battle because this editor wanted my entire month's salary just to edit an 89-page book. But look how things have changed for writers. Now I can use artificial intelligence to edit my stuff, and then have real people proofread it to make sure technology doesn't become the be-all and end-all. Because, let's be real, it can't do everything. Yeah, so after thinking about where book publishing is headed, I realized I might not sell truckloads of copies of my books to a huge crowd all at once. But what I did see was that there are tons of people all over the world who want to publish their books, even if only a few people read each one. So, you know what I ended up doing? I registered my own book publishing company with the government. It wasn't even on my radar at first, I just wanted to write my stuff. But I saw that I needed to think bigger to make things work. Having some insight into the future also made me realize that people's attention spans for reading are probably going to get way shorter in the next decade or so. We'll still have those hardcore readers who can devour a massive book, but there'll be way more people who'd rather read a bunch of shorter books, you know? Like 10 different 300-page books, or even more people going for those quick reads, around 50 or 150 pages. So, knowing that it's easier for people to pick up a shorter book, say around 100 to 150 pages, would it make sense for me to go ahead and write a massive 500-page book? Especially when I could break that down into 2 or 3 shorter books on similar topics and still get my message across. I mean, the answer's pretty obvious, right? We've got to be smart and use the knowledge we gain to make the right moves. Yeah, and I'm not missing the point that people are more likely to read your books if they see you as someone who knows their stuff in a certain area. Since I write about personal growth and live by what I write, I know I need to start working on my public speaking skills. Because there's going to be a time when I'll be out there talking about life principles, probably even holding up this book you're reading or others I've written to back up what I'm saying. I know that when I get to that point, even if I write a book that's almost 300 pages, a lot of people will still read it because they've heard me speak. Am I also going to ignore the fact that some people only want to read a thick book? Not at all. If I have a specific audience that doesn't like audiobooks but loves holding a physical book or reading a long one on their phone without distractions, I'll write books to fit what they like. But if I'm aiming for a wider audience, I need to be quick thinking about how people live their lives these days and adapt to it. Think about a public speaker who hates audio or video recordings, or someone who still prefers to walk everywhere, even though we have cars, bikes, and planes. It's the same for someone who isn't paying attention to how the future will change their field. I hope I didn't bore you with all the writing talk, especially since you're not an author and all. But I really think there are some good things in there that you can take away and use in your own area. So, when's the absolute best time to start thinking about how things are going to change in your field? Right now, like, immediately. And it's not enough to just think about it, you've got to actually do something. But hey, don't forget to always check everything you're planning to do with what God says and, in your prayer and meditation time. And you're spot on about when to start thinking about the future of your field, right now. And not just think about it, but actually do something about it. But yeah, the most important thing is to always run those plans by God's word and through prayer and meditation. That's the key. Chapter 5. Who will continue the work after I'm gone? Yeah, I don't think we need to spend any time trying to convince anyone that we're not going to be around on this planet forever, right? Death is just something everyone has to go through, or maybe some of us will experience the rapture. And even if the rapture doesn't happen right now, we all need to be aware that the end of something, maybe even our own lives, could happen at any moment. So, I think the best way to look at it isn't to just say God forbid, but to start asking ourselves what we need to do to make sure we live a life that makes a difference. Okay, so first off, it's important to get that the big picture God gave you is way bigger than just you. It might start with you, but it's not supposed to stop there. You're either the one kicking things off or you're picking up where someone else left off. And you've got to keep that in mind with every step you take. It's a spiritual thing, and we shouldn't just brush it off. If you look at how things work in God's kingdom, you see loads of people who walked with God and how they had to pass on what they were doing to someone else before they died. That's because they understood that what God gave them was too big to finish in just their lifetime. It's meant to keep going. You've probably even heard people today say that the spirit of Elijah or Elisha or even Apostle Paul is on someone. That means the special abilities and creativity God put inside you can last for generations. It's something we all need to wrap our heads around and start working on now. God told Abraham he'd be the father of nations. And you know the rest of the story, right? It didn't all happen while he was alive. This father of nations had Ishmael and then Isaac, Isaac being the promised child, and even Isaac had to wait and then had Jacob, who then had the 12 tribes of Israel. You see what I'm getting at? Exactly. Am I saying that most of the things God has told you won't happen while you're alive? Not at all. But I want you to realize that there's more to what you've seen so far. There's more to what God has shown you right now, and if you start doing things with that bigger picture in mind, you'll see how God will open your eyes to see way more than you can even imagine. Think about David. His purpose wasn't just about being king. Imagine if he hadn't thought about writing down all the music he composed back then. Can you picture a Bible without the book of Psalms? Doesn't feel quite right, does it? There's something bigger than the vision God's given you at the moment, and you've got to start thinking about how to make sure you don't let God down. It's going to be like a relay race. You'll run your part and then hand it off to someone else. That's just how it is. Okay, so now that I get that the vision I have is bigger than just me and will need other people to keep it going even after I'm gone, what are the actual steps I need to take, right? I think the first thing is to put into practice what's laid out in the principles of the kingdom. You know, that person with so much love made us realize we should pray for God to send more people to work in the harvest because there's so much to do, but not enough workers. You get what I mean, right? That's why prayer is so crucial. I think this is something I need to take more seriously in my own life because now is the time to start praying for whoever God has planned to take over my writing thing after I'm gone. It could be one of my kids or just someone I don't even know yet. But the main thing is to make sure someone continues with the vision to help God's kingdom grow. And this kind of prayer can only come from someone with a real, genuine heart, someone who isn't too selfish to let God work in their life. They wouldn't care if God teaches them how to get things done. All they know is they have to be humble enough to see what God wants them to see. And while you're making that serious prayer a regular thing, what else do you think needs to happen? Yeah, this is where showing love to people comes in big time. Now's the moment to pour yourself into others, to teach them what you know, and see who's willing to put their time and energy into it. They've got to be passionate about it, not just looking to take over, but genuinely wanting to continue what you started. I don't know a ton about Evangelist Reinhard Bonnke and Evangelist Daniel Kolenda of Christ for All Nations, but I just love how that same passion is being carried all over the world, preaching the gospel to grow God's kingdom. So much has been done, and I just know that if Evangelist Reinhard hadn't realized that this vision was way bigger than him, CFAN probably would have fallen apart after he passed away. We all need to understand that we need to keep teaching the people around us, while we pray that God will choose whoever He wants for the job. Most importantly, don't forget that your vision is bigger than you and will last longer than your time on earth. You've got to start working on it, and the perfect time is right now. Section 3, Your Vision and Romantic Relationship. Alright, so we've covered a lot of ground in the first 2 parts of this book. We've looked at how God wants you to develop yourself and how to see your vision from a business perspective. Now, in this part, we're gonna dive deep into how your vision and your romantic relationship connect. Your love life can either help you or throw you off track with your vision. It's up to us how we see it. God wants us to have great relationships that don't get in the way of His plans for us. So, in this section, we'll explore what God has in mind when it comes to managing your romantic relationship alongside your vision. I'm gonna share some questions God wants you to think about before you even get into a romantic relationship. Or even if you're already in one, there are still things God wants you to do. And trust me on this, these are things you need to take seriously because God made you. He knows how to bring out the best in you. I'm sure that following the principles we'll talk about in this part will take you far in life. Seriously, you won't see things the same way after reading this. Chapter 1. Setting Priorities First. Vision, vision, vision. Seriously, it's the one thing that pushes you to go above and beyond. But then comes this other really strong desire that can either make or break that vision, wanting to settle down. You know, wanting to build a happy family with someone you love, and it all kicks off with a romantic relationship. So, for those of us who figured out what we were called to do way back in high school, you probably remember how you attracted a lot of guys or ladies because you were so focused and seemed so serious. There was just something about your life that needed all your attention, and your classmates couldn't help but start having feelings for you because that's one of the powerful things having a clear vision can do. But you know what? Things need to happen when they're supposed to. The very first thing you need to focus on before even thinking about getting into a romantic relationship is to be sure you've got a clear picture of your vision. Do you remember that first guy, Adam? You remember what happened, right? It was super clear what he was supposed to be doing, and actually, he'd already started doing it before God gave him Eve. Should I be real with you? God didn't say, "Hey Adam, you know I've got a plan for you, right? Okay, so go have fun with Eve. I'll fill you in later." Nope. He made sure Adam had already started working on his assignment before bringing Eve into the picture. Now, had Eve been around as long as Adam? Honestly, I don't know. But I do know she'd been in existence, just like your future spouse has probably been around for a few years before you were born, or maybe you're a little older than him/her. But God, in His kindness, might be keeping you from noticing them yet because He wants you to be sure about what your work is. Whether you're male or female, we all have assignments given to us by God. We can't ignore that because of all the potential He's put inside us. So, what should be your main focus before you decide it's time for a romantic relationship? Simple, be sure about what God has called you to do. That's it. If you're a musician today, planning to be a banker in a few years, and then jumping into making shoes after that, and you're still wondering what your real calling is, then getting into a romantic relationship probably isn't the smartest move right now. It's your job to figure that out by praying and talking to God. You might not agree with this, it might sound a bit tough, but honestly, it's a hard truth we all need to accept, especially if you're a guy. As a man, having peace of mind should be a top priority, and this advice will help you get there. Peace isn't just a nice to have for men, it's a must. It's when you're clear on your calling that you can then start looking for someone who's really interested in that too. Then, the other things you look for in a partner can come into play. Shalom. Chapter 2. My spouse's interest in my vision. Okay, yes, we've talked about the importance of getting clarity on your God-given assignment. That's fantastic, but there's still something crucial we all need to address here. And as this chapter's heading suggests, it's essential to be sure if your partner is fully supportive of what God has called you to do. Have you ever witnessed a situation like, Yeah, I love him/her, but I despise what he or she does. Can't they just drop that ridiculous thing they claim God wants them to do and just do something else? If you can relate to this, and maybe the person you're in courtship with has shown clear signs that you won't be able to pursue what God has called you to do once you're married, then it's better to end the relationship without delay, no matter how much emotional energy you've invested. And you know what? Don't get so caught up that you start believing you can persuade your partner to embrace what God has called you to do. They might show you affection and even share your faith, but it's vital to be honest with yourself and realize that you'll deeply regret not pursuing what God has called you to. Putting our assignments on hold because of a spouse means we've fallen short and have essentially told God that He can't trust us with the gifts He's given us. He might be patient for a time, but ultimately, He'll have to look for someone else because you've prioritized a controlling partner over the assignment He has given you to impact lives and nations. If your partner isn't showing any interest in your God-given potential and hasn't ever even encouraged you to grow, bring it up for discussion and be absolutely sure whether they're willing to support you or not. If your spouse still shows a lack of interest, I believe now is the best time to end the relationship and intentionally start working on your purpose until it attracts the right person who is ready to spend their life with you and help you reach your full potential. A man might think this doesn't apply to him, thinking, "Oh, I'm the man of the house, I can influence my wife to do whatever I want." While that might seem true, the reality is, if your wife deeply dislikes your passion, you're heading for trouble. You'll find yourself constantly struggling with your vision, even if you're the most gifted person in your field. Haven't you heard stories of men with great vision who lost their way because of the woman they got involved with? There are plenty of examples to show us this. If she's not interested right from the beginning of your relationship, don't try to force it. Let her go, because there are many wonderful women out there who would see it as an opportunity to support you with prayers and in every other way they can. And for a woman, you know that a man who doesn't value your vision will likely be controlling, right? He'll tell you what to do and what not to do, and you'll be held back indefinitely unless you take action. Sometimes, ending a relationship before marriage is far better than a broken marriage later on. And let me add this, even if you've been intimate and feel trapped despite seeing clear warning signs, still leave. It's better to remain single while you develop your potential than to stay married to someone who won't even give you the chance to work on yourself. I recall speaking with a married woman in 2021 who was experiencing domestic abuse. Her husband didn't share her faith and had strictly forbidden her from serving God. He drank, smoked, and physically abused her. She told me she knew she had the gift of prophecy, but it couldn't be expressed because she felt trapped and wasn't sure she could leave the marriage. While praying for his change is possible, it's wiser to heed the saying that prevention is better than a cure. Let's please be careful and wise in our choices. Chapter 3. How does my vision support my spouse's vision? Alright, let's assume you've successfully navigated the first two crucial steps by following the principles we discussed in the initial chapters of this section. You've established that you both genuinely appreciate and support each other's God-given callings, which is fantastic. Now, it's time to take the next important step, exploring how what God has called you to do can also support your spouse's vision. If you both truly value each other's divine assignments, it signifies a connection and potential for mutual support. This is the moment to come together and start asking each other specifically what you can do to help one another. Intimacy can fade in a marriage when each person is solely focused on their pursuits without involving the other. You might both come home from your respective endeavors, watch television together, and go to bed without any meaningful, intimate conversation. So, don't let that happen. Ask your partner, even while you're dating and certainly if you're married, what they envision you can do to support them. Similarly, communicate the support you're hoping to receive. And it's not enough just to ask, be intentional and proactive about actually doing those things. One of the most wonderful aspects of marriage, or even dating, is when both partners can see their purpose reflected in what the other does. They can team up and start making a significant impact on God's kingdom together. It's truly amazing, isn't it? Look for ways you can use your skills and calling to collaborate. She might handle the singing while you help her refine the lyrics or correct any grammatical errors. You are valuable in her life, and she is valuable in yours. Don't underestimate the power of partnership in your God-given assignments. You'll never regret it. So, ask yourself, what can I do to support my spouse's vision, and what can my spouse do to support mine? Then, start putting those things into action and trust God for continued guidance. God bless you.